That's better. Hey, I'm going to start just a few minutes early to give our guest all the time that she needs to be with you today. Let me tell you, everybody looks great. Every time I walk in here for a forum and see you dressed this way, it just makes my heart sing. You look professional, and I appreciate you taking the extra time to look great and come in professional dress, so thank you. I am delighted today to have my friend and my wealth coach, by the way, Deborah Owens, join us this morning, and I'm just honored to have her here, and we're going to have her introduced here in just a minute. But I'm just so grateful to have her here. And I want to thank all of the team that does all the work to put these forums, this distinguished Dean's series together for us. So let's please thank the Advising Center and everyone that works so hard to pull these events off. Thank you for what you do. I am so excited about today. So here's my question for you as people keep coming in. I know I started a little bit early. Who in here wants to be a millionaire? Stand up. If you want to be a millionaire, stand up. Okay, that's great. You can sit down. We're all on the same page today. Let me tell you something. Today is your day. You're going to find out this morning what it takes to be wealthy. And I want you to listen so closely. I promise you, listen to me, I promise you, if you will listen to our guest today, you will find out what you need to do to have a path to wealth. Is that a good thing? You like that? All right. Well, look, hey, please help me welcome Kayla Wetzel to the podium, who will introduce our guests, and we'll get started. So come on up, Kayla, and introduce our guests today. By the way, before we introduce Deborah, I thought I saw several faculty members come in also, and I want to thank them for coming. If you're faculty or staff, stand up so we can acknowledge you this morning also. I saw Dr. Anakwe, Dr. Kwok, several of them. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. All right, so Kayla, go ahead and introduce our guest.
Good morning. My name is Kayla Wetzel. I'm a senior studying finance and banking with a minor in financial planning, and I'm happy to say that I will be graduating this spring. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here today to introduce our guest speaker, Ms. Deborah Owens. Ms. Owens is a speaker, author, and columnist, and radio show talk host. She is an expert sought after to speak on the topics of entrepreneurship and financial empowerment. Her passion is helping people of all income levels build wealth. After spending 2 decades as a financial services professional, working with high net worth clients, and rising to the position of vice president of an investment company, she eventually decided that she wanted a change. Today, she is a financial lifestyle expert heading her own firm, the Owens Media Group, for which she develops customized training and work-life programs for corporations and organizations on multimedia platforms. Through her books, radio show, and public speaking tours, she motivates people and inspires audiences with stories of real people achieving extraordinary results. Her goal is clear: to provide financial empowerment programs to companies and individuals of all incomes. Ms. Owens is the wealth coach on My Generation TV, which airs nationally on PBS. She is the host and executive producer of Wealthy Lifestyles, a personal finance talk show that airs on NPR affiliate WEAA 88.9 in Baltimore. And she is the author of 3 books, including Nickel and Dime Your Way to Wealth, Wealth Building on Any Income. Please put your hands together and join me in welcoming Ms. Deborah Owens back to Delaware State University.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hugs. I think I have a wireless mic. How's everybody doing today? Good? Okay, so y'all got to give me some energy. I know it's early, but how's everybody doing today? So what do you think I'm going to talk about? I mean, really. What am I going to talk about? Money. Money? What if I told you that I'm going to talk about something that's more than money. Today, I want to have a conversation with all of you about something a little different, and that's wealth. Do you think wealth is different from money? So if I could ask just one of you, what is wealth? How would you define it? Anybody, define wealth for me. I'm in the business school, so I know somebody can define it for me. Anybody? What's that? Wealth is a problem? Oh, that's interesting. Tell me, expand on that a little more. What do you mean? Not having it? Having it is a problem. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Well, I'm going to challenge. I love the fact that you said that it's a problem, because actually that's how so many people feel about it. So what I hope to share with you today is a few lessons and some things that I hope you can go away with and apply. So how many of you think that you're in an educational institution? How many of you think that knowledge is power? Is knowledge power? What if I told you that knowledge wasn't power? Would anybody challenge me on that? Knowledge, how about if I told you knowledge correctly applied is power? Would you agree with that? Okay, so, you're going to hear a lot today. What I'm going to share with you are hopefully some insights that you'll be able to take away with you and apply. But what I will say is that a presentation without application is just a conversation. So let me get started with what I'm going to talk with you about today. And the title of my talk really is The 7 Wealthy Habits of Successful People. But I want to begin by sharing with you the fact that I am you. When Dean Covington invited me here to Delaware State, I thought about, okay, how can I connect with you at a level where you could understand, okay? And so what you're looking at here on the left is a picture of my mother at the age of 18. And on the right is a picture of me at 18. It's my high school graduation picture. And, I had my whole life ahead of me, and yet I had no idea really what I wanted to do. And so at the age of 18, I entered college, Oakland State University in Detroit, Michigan. And, my mother was the daughter of a sharecropper from Pineapple, Alabama, and she didn't go on to college, but she had dreams for me that I'm sure many of your parents have dreams for you. Would you agree? And so at 18, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and yet at the age of 21, on a dare, I went and took an interview with a financial services company, and the only role they had for me was as a receptionist. And so I actually started my career in financial services as a receptionist, and a few months later, the manager came out and he said, "Oh, it's clear you're overqualified for this position." And long story short, I ended up getting my broker's license and being recruited by Fidelity Investments, and I had a really fast trajectory. After about 5 years, I ended up being promoted into management and then managing the whole West Coast for Fidelity Investments. And as I left, I was in the industry for about 15 years, and then I decided that I didn't want to sell investment products. I really felt like people didn't necessarily need to be sold things, but what they needed was knowledge. And so from there, I went on to write several books, one of which most of you will receive today, my Nickel and Dime Your Way to Wealth book. But when I wrote my third book, I wanted to answer this question. what did financially successful people know that most people don't? I mean, when I went into the investment industry and I stepped in that investment company, my family didn't come from wealth. So let me tell you, any of you, do you have a trust fund where you given a fully paid four-year college education to come to this university? Anybody? Nobody, right? So what I want you to know is I am you, okay? And what I did learn, though, after I became a receptionist, was that I really felt like it clicked to me. As I started giving people quotes on the telephone, the financial markets began to make sense to me. And I realized that I had a gift. And that gift was the ability to make very complex concepts make sense to real people. And so I say that because when I wrote my book, A Purse of Your Own, I wanted to identify what made financially successful people. What did wealthy people know that most people didn't? And so in that book and in my research, I identified 7 attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors that I call the 7 wealthy habits that financially successful or successful people know that most people don't. And as I reflected on that research, one of the things that I realized was that I had intuitively used those same attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors, and they became and understood that was the reason for my fast trajectory. Are you with me? Like, how did this girl from Detroit, who hadn't even finished her college degree yet, go on to be a vice president with a large investment company? And when I began to understand that, and as I started to help clients, and as I started to go up the corporate ladder, I began to understand, though, that those attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors are what open doors for you in life. And as a result of your attitudes and beliefs and behaviors, that's where wealth really comes from. So the first concept that I want you to understand is this. And it's what I noticed immediately when I found myself in that investment company, was that wealthy people had what I call now a wealth mindset, whereas I had an income mindset. Now, I don't know about your parents, but when I went away to college, my parents' dreams and hopes for me was that I would get a college degree, I would earn an income, I would get with a good company, and that I would go further than they did. Is that the dream that your parents had for you? Is it? Yeah, well, that's the dream that my parents had for me, and if I were to think about it, I would have far exceeded what their dreams were. Do you understand what I'm saying? Here's what I want you to get, is that my mother grew up on a farm in Alabama picking cotton, okay? And so she dreamed of the day that when she would go far, far away from that, and then when she did migrate to Detroit, have 5 kids, work in the factory, retire, and then to see her child, right, go on and get an MBA degree and, be a vice president with a major corporation, I had exceeded her dreams in terms of, making a great income and making a good living. But what I had to come to understand was that there was a difference between income and wealth. And that's why I started out with that question about income and wealth. So to begin with today, I want to define for you what an author wrote and what I put in my book, Nickel and Dime, Your Way to Wealth, which is the difference between income and wealth. Are you ready to hear that? Okay, so here's how I want to frame our conversation today. Poverty-minded people with a poverty-minded mindset, they think and manage their money day to day. Oh, if I can just get through today. Poor people with a poor mindset think and manage their money week to week. When they get paid, and then if they can make it through the week, they'll worry about whatever happens the next week. Middle class people think and manage their money month to month. And if you think about it, that's exactly how we're sold things, based on how much we can afford. If when you go out from this college and you go to buy a car, the first thing they're going to want to do is look at your income, and they're going to tell you how much a monthly payment you can afford. How can I say this? Wealthy people, or let me put it this way, affluent people think and manage their money year to year. They have a budget, they allocate their resources, they allot and put a line item in there where they pay themselves first. But people with a wealth mindset or a wealthy mindset think and manage their money generation to generation. So what I just described to you are people and their mindsets in different economic stratas, but what is the difference between someone with a poverty mindset versus a wealth mindset? What was the difference in all of them? Think shorter term, right? So time. I want you to get this. So the difference between having an income mindset and a wealth mindset is simply this, is making your financial decisions based on the long-term impact of that financial decision. When you begin to make decisions based on their long-term economic impact, that is the difference between having a wealth mindset, and that is what I'm going to share with you today. Are you with me? Okay, so making a shift from an income to a wealth mindset means being able to turn the income that you earn into wealth. So real wealth is when your money works and you no longer have to. Anybody agree or disagree with me on that? You agree? Okay, so what we see in this chart, oops, I thought I had a pointer in here, maybe not. Okay, so is there a pointer in here? Middle button. Middle button, okay, all right, perfect. Okay, so people with less than, this shows lifetime earnings based on your professional degree attainment, right? And so a high school over their career, someone with less than a high school education will earn almost $1 million. That's still a lot of money, would you agree? Someone with a high school diploma, $1.3 million. Some college with no degree, $1.5 million. But as you go up in terms of educational attainment, with a professional degree, almost $3.5 million in earnings. So if that is true, then the question that I have for you is, why does the average American have less than $10,000 in retirement savings? Why do you think that is? Anybody want to guess? What's that? They're consumers, right? So it's one thing to earn an income, it's another thing to actually turn that income into wealth. And so, what I want you to understand, the main principle is it's not how much money you make. For many, many years, I have had a radio show on the NPR affiliate in Baltimore, and about 5 years into it, I really wanted to quit. And the reason I wanted to quit is that I got sick of people calling up and saying, I don't have any money, investing is too scary, you got to have a lot of money to invest. And then I ran across this woman. Anybody know who that woman is? Anybody? Osceola McCarthy. Have you ever heard the name? Osceola McCarthy was a washwoman in Mississippi, and she saved her pennies in savings, and she ended up saving $250,000 and actually giving $200,000 of it to the University of Mississippi so that they could give college scholarships away. But in my mind, I always wondered, what if Osceola McCarty had actually learned how to invest? What if she had been like me and had, stumbled into a Merrill Lynch office one day and actually got somebody to invest her savings? And then I met Mr. Earl. Now, Mr. Earl was someone who would call my radio show every week for years, and the only thing I knew about him was that he worked for a bank. And he would call in with great advice and suggestions on how he bought his first share of stock, how he invested in his first mutual funds, and so I just assumed that he was a trust officer at a bank. And so I invited Mr. Earl to come on the show, and I interviewed him. And what I learned after interviewing him, was that Mr. Earl was not a trust officer in the bank. What I did learn, though, was that, and he didn't even realize it at the time, but he had saved about $450,000. And then 10 years later, that $450,000 is almost $1 million. And guess what Mr. Earl did for the bank? Anybody want to guess? He was the parking attendant. And he had been the parking attendant for 33 years. And he had never made more than $12.50 an hour. How do you think he was able to accumulate that $1 million? Investing, because he was a parking attendant at a bank, Mercantile Bank, one of the wealthiest banks, where the wealthiest people in Baltimore banked, and he simply observed them. And every day, you know what he observed on that parking lot? He observed that working people came in every week, they cashed their checks, and they left. And he didn't see them again until they cashed another check. But what he observed with those wealthy patrons of the bank is that they came in at all times of the month. You know where they went? They came in, they put dividend checks from their stocks in their safe deposit box. When they needed a loan, they went and got stock certificates out of their safe deposit box, and they took a loan out against their own assets. So Mr. Earl simply watched what wealthy people did. It took him 10 years to get the courage to convince, actually he felt ashamed, to get enough courage to ask one of the advisors who had an office in the bank building to buy his first 2 shares of IBM. And when I sat down with Mr. Earl after that interview, do you know those 2 shares for $200? Do you know how much they were worth, and he'd never invested another dime? They were worth $200, was now worth $40,000 in 20 years. Are you with me? So what I'm conveying to you is having a wealth mindset really is going to require you to understand a number of different things and a number of different habits, which I'm going to share with you today. Are you ready? So the question I have for you is, if Mr. Earl can accumulate $1 million portfolio, can you? Can you? So your dean asked you, who wants to be a millionaire? What I'm going to share with you today is, it's not what you know, it's what you do with what you know. Are you with me? Okay, so let's get started. I know I don't have a lot of time, Dean, but I hope you bear with me, okay? All right. So the first habit I want to share with you is the habit of adding value. And what do you think adding value is? What is value? Anybody? What is value? Worth, right? What is value? What's that? Yeah, same thing, worth. Well, wouldn't you say that adding value means to increase something's worth? Would you agree with that? And so I want to talk to you about this habit in 2 forms, and just in terms of behavior, all right? So I talked about the attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. The habit of adding value in a behavioral sense is doing more than what's expected. You with me? doing more than what's expected. It means showing up early and leaving late. And what I will share with you is when I looked back on my own trajectory with Fidelity Investments, the reason that I had so much success was because I did that. You know, the one thing my parents gave me was an incredible work ethic because they were very hard workers, right? And so I felt like that if I could apply that same work ethic no matter where I was, that I could be successful. And so that's exactly what I did. So one of the first reasons for my success was I offered to volunteer my time to one of who was at that time one of the first female African-American account executives at Merrill Lynch, and that opportunity with her allowed me to learn more, and then she ended up paying me 10% of all of her earnings because her earnings went up. So that's the first habit I want to talk to you about, just in terms of your attitudinal. If you want to be a success in life, you got to show up early. You got to do more than what's expected. You got to exceed your clients' and your customers' expectation. And you've got to add value. You got to do more than what's expected. And sometimes what that is going to require is sometimes you will not get paid for it. Are you with me? How many of you are in internships right now? How many of you have not had an internship? Oh, we got to change that. So we're going to change that because that is your entry into your door. Do you know I've had several interns at who've worked with me through the radio station and through my company who have gone on and written books themselves and have done that. That's how you get access to one of the greatest forms of capital, and that's social capital. Are you with me? Social capital is when somebody else will vouch for you. And that's what M.O. Moore did for me. And I went on to become an advisor myself and become that VP. But all I want to share with you is it really is truly better to give than to receive. Because when you give to others without expecting anything, guess what law you puts into work? And I'm not going to get too heady with you, but reciprocity. Are you with me? Right? When you do something for other people, they are then almost going to feel obligated to do something for you because that's how the world works. Are you with me? Okay. Now in a financial sense, the habit of adding value is paying yourself first and developing the habit of saving. You know, Mr. Earl, one of the things that I write about in the book that you're going to get a copy of today is that's what his mother taught him the habit of saving. But unlike Osceola McCarthy, who only saved $250, I'm not like $250,000 isn't a lot, right? It is a lot. I don't want to diminish that, but I know that had Osceola McCarthy invested, she would have easily had $1 million. Would you agree with that? Okay, so paying yourself first. The next habit is a wealthy vision. And that's the habit of leveraging your unique strengths. Now, why is this important? Why do you think this is important? Anybody?
It's the difference between you and somebody else that's competing with you?
It's the difference between someone else and you and someone else competing with you. Absolutely. Because here's what I want you to understand is leveraging we all come here with some unique strengths, and I don't have time to go into it fully today, but it's a workshop that I do. But here's what I want you, when you figure out what you can do, what you do better than anybody else, and you do it really, really well, that's how you actually add value to others. So here's what I want you to understand. A couple of things. You're all in college, and you know I have a son who graduated from University of Maryland in 2009. He came out at one of the worst times in the economy, and it's 2009. His senior year, he says to me, "Ma, I know what I want to do." I'm like, "What do you want to do, Brandon?" He's like, I want to go into marketing. And so my daughter said, "Oh, you know, Brandon wants to have a family dinner. So, and Mom, just going to give you a heads up. He's going to ask you, can he do a 5th year at University of Maryland?" I looked at her, is he crazy? I was cracking up. So anyhow, we have this family dinner. He says, oh, well, Mother, I took this class. I know exactly what I wanted to do. And I just looked at him and I said, Brandon, you're on the 4-year plan, honey. Your sister is coming right behind you. So guess what? You need to finish up. And when you get out here, you can figure out whatever that advertising market. So long story short, he did that. He came out. He took a job. He hated it, sales. He networked, that social capital thing I'm telling you about, leveraged some of my relationships, ended up sitting with the CEO of an advertising agency in Chicago at some conference. You got to network, guys, okay? Texts me and says, Mom, I'm sitting with the CEO of Burrell Advertising. She says she's going to have HR call me. Even if she doesn't, it's cool. I'm glad I got to meet her. Long story short, that job put him on track to not only Burrell, so he started out, his client was P&G. He ended up, he wanted to get to New York with advertising, so he took a job in New York with some guys who had been with Burrell. Relationships, social capital, I want you guys to get this right. So he's there, his account is filed. So then he meets some other people. Next thing you know, he's at Publicis. His account is Citigroup, the largest financial company in the world. He decides he wants a raise. They won't give it to him. He leaves. And then they just gave him another promotion, and now he's a VP at a big advertising company. You with me? So the reason why I tell you this story is because he realized what his unique strength was, and it really was advertising and marketing. And so you got to figure out what your superpower is. You with me? You got to figure out what your superpower is. And then once you figure out what your superpower is, you've got to use that superpower to open doors for yourself. Are you with me? No one's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, what a great job you're doing. You have to stand out. And in order to do that, it's not what keeps you the same as other people. You hear me? It's what makes you different that's going to make you stand out. And when you use that gift and talent to serve others in a unique way, that is your pathway to wealth. So what was the first habit? Outlook, right? The habit of adding value, doing more than what's expected. The second habit is leveraging your unique strength. Long story short, though, here's what I want you to get, though. You may have a desire to do something in your heart, and it's like really, really burning, and you might think that you're not good at it. When I first got in front of a stage for Fidelity in front of 300 people, I bombed. Ooh, it was terrible. I was like, ooh, Lord, get me off this stage. And I got off the stage, and my boss said to me, Deborah, you were great. And I looked at him. I was like, is he crazy? So I went in the restroom. I composed myself. I looked myself in the mirror, and I said, you are going to be great. And so after that, every small seminar we gave in the Fidelity Investor Centers, I gave. And then I went and took a course at public speaking, Dale Carnegie Public Speaking, a great course. If you're not good at public speaking, I would suggest you go do that today. And the rest is history. And imagine how I felt when I was touring with Bishop Jakes and I looked out in the North Carolina Coliseum in front of 40,000 women. So the other point I want to make is if you have a desire, then you gotta hone that skill. You with me? And here, a lot of your friends around you, they're going to make fun of you, right? So here's the other thing I want to tell you, is that typically, 2 ways you can figure out what you're good at. Either people are going to make fun at you about it, all right? Or either they're going to compliment you about it. And so what that requires, if you're going to leverage this unique gift and talent, is you cannot be afraid of other people making fun of you. Because typically when other people make fun of you and make judgmental remarks, you know what they are? They're envious. Okay? And sometimes when people make fun of other people, it's because they want to do exactly what they're doing. Are you with me? Okay? So you cannot be afraid of critics. In fact, invite them. okay? Because the best way to silence your critics, what do you think it is? To be successful at doing that very thing. Is this making sense to you guys? All right, so let's go to the next habit. So a wealthy vision in practical terms, how did Mr. Earl, do you think Mr. Earl just had his parking attendant job and that's what he was able to invest? No, he had to have a side hustle, right? So he had to have a side hustle, so he looked down that street that he was a parking attendant on, all these business owners, he ended up working for the jewelry shop, he became a janitor in that shop, he had all kinds of side hustles. In fact, when I met him in Towson, they called him the mayor of York Road. And none of them knew that this guy had all this money in the bank but me, right? And so you've got to find other income opportunities. You've got to, let me tell you a story. I don't need me to get off track, but I just interviewed this guy. Follow him on Twitter. He's called the Financial Panther. This guy paid off $87,000 in school loan debt in like 2.5 years. Now here he is, he's an attorney, he's making over $100,000 right now, but he still has a side hustle. He walks dogs, he delivers food, he makes an extra $14,000, and I said to him, well, why are you still doing this? He said, well, I got a dog, I figure I walk other people's dogs anyway, I get paid for it, I gotta eat, I figured I'll deliver food. So he went on and on and on, and I asked him, well, what's your goal? He said, well, you know what? I figure if I keep doing this, I can retire at 35. Make sense? So the bottom line is if you're going to get to that $1 million, you got to be thinking about other opportunities. I told him, I was like, I don't know, brother, I couldn't be walking any dogs, but if it works for you, I'm good, right? Okay, the next habit, a wealthy appetite. And this, my friends, is one of the most important habits of all, and that is increasing your financial acumen. How many of you actually have invested in a stock? Okay, some of you. How many of you have invested in a mutual fund? Some of you. How many of you know how to research and analyze a mutual fund? A lot of finance students. How many of you know how to research and analyze individual stocks? Some of you, okay. The next time I come back, I want everybody's hands to be up because this really is the secret to building wealth. Okay, so rather than come out with my other charts, rather than tell you, I'm going to show you. So this is the timeline of Apple stock. How many of you got iPhones? Let me put it that way. How many of you? Dang, all of you. Amazing. Okay, so if you had invested the amount of money you have spent on your iPhone, and Apple came out as an IPO at $3.59 in 1980. Okay, December of 1980. It went on to make the Macintosh computer, the Macintosh portable, the first PowerBook, the iMac, and then, let's see, so this is, its stock price literally did nothing. That's what many people don't realize. From 81 to like 2005, right? One had, in 2000 when it launched the iPod, got a little blip. But once it introduced the iPhone, look at its trajectory, okay? And then in 2011, Steve Jobs died. But if you had invested $300 in Apple, your investment would have grown to $150,000. That is the difference between how Osceola McCarthy was a saver, but Mr. Earl was an investor, and that $200 grew to $40,000 in IBM stock. Are you with me? Okay, because here's the other thing that's just really amazing. Here's a $10,000 investment in Apple, the IPO, and it would be worth $2.5 million. So what I want you to understand is that's the first thing I noticed when I was in that Merrill Lynch office, and it was that wealthy people didn't just buy products, right? They invested in the companies that made the products. Is this making sense to you? Okay, so the next habit, and I know I have to keep going, but wealthy focus, and that's the habit of goal achievement. How many of you have written financial goals? Okay? For those of you who don't, that is the real secret. If it's not written down, it is not going to happen. And basically what I've showed you here is really what a financial planner would do. First thing is you got to have a cash reserve, an emergency fund. Next thing, you got to pay off your debt, because debt can grow at the same rate that your savings or your investments can grow. But your money won't grow if you don't have specific goals. And then one of those goals should be at some point for you to retire or not have to work. So I'm going to give you a number, okay? And basically what this chart is showing is that at every age, how much you should have in your salary saved, okay? So at age 30, when you work for 10 years, your goal should be to save at least 1 times your salary at age 30. And by the time you retire, you should have 10 times your annual salary in a retirement savings account. Make sense? Okay, next. And this is the most important, another important habit, and that's a wealthy mindset, the habit of viewing problems as opportunities. When you can look at any kind of adversity in your life and turn it into something positive, when you're on your job and you can identify problems that company is are having and how to have a solution to you, that really is the secret to being successful. One of the reasons I got that promotion at Fidelity was because they had this box where we could make suggestions, and if they implemented your suggestion, you got to have lunch with the CEO. So I literally got to go to Boston, have lunch with Ned Johnson, the CEO of Fidelity, and I can trace my ability to go into management training and all those other opportunities to that particular event. And so viewing problems as opportunities and solving problems for other people and solving problems in an organization is one of the ways that you're going to become successful. The other thing is a wealthy system. So one of the reasons that Mr. Earl, I'm not going to go into this, one of the reasons that Mr. Earl was able to accumulate that portfolio was because he had automatic programs set up. He had mutual funds where $25 were coming out of his account each month. That $25, when I sat down with him after 20 years, had grown into almost $50,000. In fact, Mr. Earl had more investments outside of his retirement plan at work than he had inside because he made such little money. For you, though, I want to give you 3 apps that if you haven't tried this, you can invest. How many of you know about Acorns? Okay? Acorns will basically invest your spare change in individual stocks. A great way to set up a systematic program. Loyal3 is a company that lets you invest with as little as $10, and you can invest in companies like Starbucks, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, companies like that. And then my favorite app is Robinhood. Robinhood allows you to invest in all different kinds of stocks and ETFs with as little as $10 a month. The key is making it systematic and automatic. How many of you go to Chipotle? How many of you go to Starbucks? Okay, so all I'm going to ask you is give up one of those coffees, give up that, although Chipotle's getting it pretty expensive, give up that $10 Chipotle and have at least $10 a month going into some type of investment, because that's how you really make your money grow. Now I'm going to end where I began, and that's a wealthy legacy. And that's the habit of paying it forward, right? So I started out talking about my mother and her dreams for me, right? And when I described wealth, I described it, do you guys remember that? Okay, so poverty-minded people think and manage their money. You remember? Day to day, right? Poor people, poor mindset, week to week. Middle-class people, mindset, month to month. Affluent people, mindset, year to year. Wealthy people, generation to generation. So it really is about leaving a legacy. This is my family, right? So that's my son Brandon, my daughter Olivia, my husband Terry. I will celebrate my 30th anniversary this year. But what I will tell you, thank you. But what I will tell you is that my greatest accomplishment, those same dreams that my mother had for me, I had for my children. I was just sharing with Dean Covington that my son and daughter, my daughter just quit her job at Under Armour, moved to New York with her brother, and somehow they're going to take over the world. All I told him is, all I need is a condo on the ocean, and I'm good. So thank you very much. You were great. 7 wealthy habits, just in review. First habit, wealthy outlook. Remember, habit of adding value, right? Second habit, wealthy vision. The habit of leveraging your unique strengths. Wealthy habit, number 3, wealthy appetite. The habit of increasing your financial acumen. Wealthy habit number 4, wealthy focus. The habit of setting and achieving goals. Wealthy habit number 5, mindset. The habit of viewing problems as opportunities. Habit number 6, system. The habit of putting your investments on automation. And last but not least, a wealthy legacy. Thank you so much. You guys were great. I hope you learned something.
On behalf of Dean Covington and the College of Business, we would like to present you with this gift and to thank you for sharing your information with us today.
Thank you. All right, you guys were great.